So this is NTI Day 5. This is Tuesday, March 17th assignment. Today we'll be covering the home front in World War II. I would advise everyone to view the message I left on my classes on Google Classroom about turning in assignments for this week. This week we have 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday was originally supposed to be an off day, so we are off from NTI assignments as well on Friday. If you get these 4 assignments done before the end of the week, so by next Sunday, the 22nd, I will exempt you from 2 assignments the following week. And the purpose for that is to try to get students to turn in their assignments, be on top of their work, not waiting until the last second, and give you a little reward the following week. So that's something definitely to consider as you start your NTI work this week. Also, if you have any questions, please don't feel afraid to email me. I also put my email on the on Google Classroom for you all to check as well. So today we're talking about the home front in World War II. So we're going to be looking at, what were the individuals not just fighting the war, but also the individuals at home. How are they serving the war effort? So after Pearl Harbor, the Selective Service Act, which was put into place before World War I, was expanded to basically anywhere from 18 to 65. Now, I don't want you to think that 65-year-olds were going off and fighting in World War II, but they knew this was a big fight, and they didn't want to set, an arbitrary cutoff when they may need more people down the line. So, for the most part, they were taking people under the age of, I think it was like 32, 33, but they had the ability to extend that age if they needed to. About 16 million were enlisted, and that includes both men and women. Also, a lot of women served in some roles as well. About 750,000 people claimed conscientious objector status, which basically means that you have a religious objection to war, meaning your religion and your beliefs prevent you from fighting in a war, and you cannot be drafted into service because that'd be a violation of your First Amendment free exercise of religion. And so the government allowed those individuals, if they could prove that this is truly an objection to their religious beliefs, and the government allowed those individuals to not have to be conscripted into war. Well, there are several stories. If you've seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge, about the guy who went into service. He was, I can't remember what his religion was, but he was a conscientious objector to fighting. So he says, I'm not going to pick up a weapon. I'm not going into war with a weapon. He ends up becoming a medic that saves several individuals. So he ends up going to war without a weapon, and it ends up being a war hero for what he did. Muhammad Ali in the Vietnam War would also be another famous example of being a conscientious objector. He stated his religious beliefs prevented him from fighting in all wars, and so he eventually, the Supreme Court declared that he fit conscientious objector status. So that's something that we start to see in World War II, is individuals who have a religious objection to war don't have to fight in it. So the government, also the United States, one of the reasons why we're going to be very successful in World War II is because of our economy. And so a lot of power was given to the government in times of war, and a lot of industries, even if they weren't war industries, just turned over to creating war-related materials during the war because of the War Productions Board, and because they just knew it was part of their duty. We're fighting these 2 big enemies in Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. And so the United States is able to produce twice as many goods as any other country. And the reason for that is because of several reasons. Number one, our economy is the strongest economy in the world. Number two, there's no active fighting going on U.S. soil, okay? All the fighting's going in the Pacific and in Europe. And because all that fighting's going on over there, we have the luxury of not having to, worry about our war industries being targeted by enemies or anything like that. And so we're really free to produce as many goods as we can because we know that we're not going to be bombed by enemies or anything like that during the war. Women are obviously going to have a huge impact in World War II. So we start the Rosie the Riveter campaign, which is down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm sure everyone's seen a picture of this sometime. This is obviously a very famous propaganda campaign by the U.S. government to get women serving in, factory jobs. So men obviously go off to fight. Those jobs are empty. We don't have enough men to fill those jobs. So just like we did in World War I, we call on the women, and more so in a sense in World War II, to come in and serve in these jobs. And so about 5 million women, served in factory jobs. And now, there's also other jobs. There was those who served in the Army as a nurse. There's those who served in more secretarial or office administrative jobs. So there are several women who served in other jobs as well, but obviously the call during this time period was to get women serving in factories so we could help produce, our war-related goods that we needed. And really, women have a foundational effect on the war. Really, if it wasn't for women, the United States would have struggled to win because they're going to be the ones at home taking care of the children. They're going to be the ones working in the factories producing war-related goods. A lot of them are going to serve as nurses in the wars, and they're going to help with family incomes. As men go off to war, yes, men were paid in the war, but they weren't always necessarily able to get their incomes back to their families. So in some cases, women were really struggling to find a source of income during the war, and so obviously working in the factories would at least solidify those jobs. And of course, this is all only temporary. After the war, all the women went back home, and the men came back to their factory jobs. The Office of Price Administration was put in place to help fix a lot of problems of World War I. So in World War I, we saw a lot of things like price gouging and inflation occur. And of course, right now, if you look in the news, there's people warning about, price gouging with the coronavirus, the fact that, people, when, demand is high for something like hand sanitizer right now, people artificially raise the price of that hand sanitizer to make a profit off of the times. And sort of the government right now is saying, no, don't do that. That's not fair. We want everyone to be healthy and safe. And kind of the same thing for the Office of Price Administration. They froze prices on things like rent and certain goods. That way, we don't have to worry about inflation, and that way you're not worried about price gouging. And then we talked about this kind of a little bit in World War I, but you had the coupon book plan, where you got a little coupon book of rations, and depending on how many people in your family, that depended on the size of the book. And that ration book, you would cut out a little coupon, and that week that would be your ration for whatever, sugar or meat or cheeses or whatever. And that obviously allowed for the men to have enough goods as they went off to fight war, and it prevented people from, as we kind of see today, hoarding on certain types of products, and allows everyone to get a fair share amount. War bonds are also going to be a huge part of the war effort. Bonds obviously are loans that people give to the government in order to use that money to fight in a war. So in theory, I could go to the U.S. government, give them $200. They will then use that $200 to, use in a war effort. And then depending on whatever the interest rate is and how long the bond is set, it could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. I then come back and I get that $200 plus interest back. And one of the advantages that they have during this time period that they did not have during World War I is they can use television to advertise these war bonds. And I want to show you an example right here. So here's an example of a war bond promotion during World War II. You'll have to watch this. It's not going to let me copy the audio. But if you watch this example, and then there's also there's the Bugs Bunny example on the next slide. But what television did during this time period is they allowed or is television allowed for, the production of advertising for war bonds to try to encourage people to say, hey, you're giving up a lot also during this time period, but so are the boys and girls that we have overseas. So your war bonds can help them, end up completing the mission, which is also to win the war. All right, so hopefully you filled out that note guide that goes with it. Again, this is the NTI assignment for Wednesday the 17th. If you got any questions, it should be Tuesday 17th. If you got any questions, you can email me, and I'll try to help you out, and hope to see you all as soon as we can.